Alafia, my dear seekers and darklings, and welcome back to the bi-weekly, not happening bi-weekly, but should be happening bi-weekly lunation astrology report with touch of tarot and mediumship by your humble wave oracle from the Wave School and Divination. And this is the full moon report for the full moon in Scorpio. Let's get into it. So, first and foremost, I want to say um, thank you for those of you that are tuning in that I didn't just directly send the videos to. If you run into this and you want to interact, leave a like, subscribe for more content, comment. It is everything goes a long way because I often find that these videos are put out to the ether to nobody. So you know, you're welcome to prove me wrong. I would love that. Now, let's talk about this full moon in Scorpio, right? So, the first thing that I want to say about this full moon in Scorpio, one thing that defines it and sets it apart from other full moons in Scorpio of other years is that there's actually a conjunction between the Sun and Uranus, which makes for some of you might have had some sort of surprising material event, surprising change in material circumstances. For some of you, it's going to be money. For some of you, more likely, it's going to be material possessions. Something happened with something that you own. And for some of you, this could be an illness, a sudden and unexpected change to something in your body. But um, given that there is a mutual reception between the full moon and the sun and Uranus, the in a sense it's a little backwards, right? So it's a little like having Uranus in Scorpio and a little like the moon in Taurus. And that being so, right? One thing that I would expect is that any sudden changes or surprises are likely to be positive or not as dramatic as maybe they would be under normal circumstances. There's an interplay of different factors coming in to make this actually a potentially shocking full moon that nonetheless has mostly positive effects. So, for example, there's definitely something in this lunation about constance, resilience, and persistence, granting us a sudden breakthrough that was sorely needed, most likely aided by someone with which we share reciprocal appreciation, but it may be triggered by a shocking and scary realization or event. The result is still expected to be, positive to bring ease and relief in the end, as I was saying, but the shock in itself might be very scary, might have been very scary at this point. Um, so that's the first thought that I want to bring up in terms of what is coming up. Conversations, handiwork, and research we've been avoiding most likely due to ego wounds. So this could be, looking into a situation that makes us feel very insecure, very scared, actively engaging and confronting past traumas in order to find a way forward is very much something that should be done during this lunation, especially um, so full moons bring to a close things that started in a new moon of the same sign. So in this case, we're talking something that we started in the new moon in Scorpio, right? Back in the math I'm doing is November of last year, right? So a process was begun in November in terms of changes to our home situation, our handling of emotions, our handling of things that bring us emotional satisfaction that should be coming to a close during this full moon. In some cases, it's going to be finally securing a stability in terms of home life situation or in terms of emotional maturity and satisfaction. Um, in other cases, it's going to be in terms of just our material circumstances and our health. Um, But yeah, that's the first thing here, right? We might get a shock in terms of those areas that forces a realization that is for the better, but the event that forces the positive realization can be scary and stressful. Next, I have here, oh yeah, and the other thing that I mentioned, right? I'm gonna elaborate on that a little bit. So there's a repetitive theme that shows up in different ways in this full moon of letting go and having faith in a higher order, in the divine, in spirits, in intuition, um, that is required, and that is the direction in which we're supposed to take many things in our lives right now at a collective level, whether it's Pluto transiting Aquarius, telling us that by exercising less control we achieve greater power, greater influence, greater transformation, and have greater ease in keeping secrets. But it is also the interplay between the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo, once again telling us that by exercising less control and having more faith, acting on more faith, we move forward, we get more things done. But here, right, in this version, which is especially centered on the nodes of the moon, what is in the middle is Jupiter in Gemini and forming a sextile to Chiron in Aries. So that's where the conversations and the work with our hands brings us good luck and growth and evolution. But that being said, with the sextile to Chiron in Aries, much of what we find, or the process of working through the information, can make us very insecure, can make us uh, relive certain traumas, or go through events that will remind us of traumatizing circumstances that we went through already. Um, but it is exactly that research, that handiwork that we've been probably avoiding and postponing, that is going to take us to that evolution, right? That is really the key, because this is a T square and it is a skip step in evolutionary astrology. I hope you don't mind that I'm a little, intermixing, throwing in the jargon with some of the concepts and the terminology, but stay with me. This will make increasingly more sense as I get through this report, right? So that's one really important thing, and I think that it is the main theme, right? That having the conversations that we've been avoiding, that are triggering, doing that research that we've been procrastinating, doing those things with our hands that we've been procrastinating as well, or that we've been avoiding because whether it's painful, or the reactions that we get or might get from our outside environment, that's exactly what's taking us in the right direction, right? Um, the best way forward is through. Um, but this comes with other things, right? So, for example, drugs or altered states of consciousness may provoke a sudden illness or material loss. So, I hope that you mostly kept it sober today, or were careful with altered states of consciousness that might not have been triggered by drugs, such as meditation. Careful what you meditated on, and what you did with the results of meditation, for example, or trance, or I want to say trance, I want to say meditation, I want to say sleep in some cases. Careful with where that's taking you right now. Um, this comes with changing feelings or home situations that are a key part of it, right? As I mentioned, while it's bound to affect our visions of the future, group memberships, sense of freedom, plus use of technology. I don't know about you guys, but it was a little difficult to use technology to get certain things done throughout the day, whether it was technology breaking down or not cooperating. Like it was very much a thing that I saw here, having to force our way through with the technology, or not being able to count on technology to get to where we're going, to get whatever we want done actually done. Um, so I have that. Uh, Greater assurance, growth, learning, and progress with healing, but also pain, traumatic flashbacks, competition, maybe even aggression is very much something that we're going to chase, that we're going to face, sorry, in this next chapter. Whether it is that to get something done, we have to argue with certain people, or people start to argue with us and we can't really escape the conflict. We have to engage it. We have to face it head on. Um, Healing through re-experiencing, through exposure, and then brave, loyal, public and dramatic ways we want to fight or assert ourselves will help or hinder our secrets changing, and even mediumship ability. Those of you that practice mediumship as I do, uh, standing in public to fight the power, for example, might help that process or hinder it. I know that for me, it's mostly helped, but it depends on when and where you're doing it. And then I want to say as a last point, because in my written report, I return kind of to the beginning, to this theme of the conversations, the handiwork, the research triggers us, takes us to things that, you know, remind us of ways in which we've been hurt, or take us to a place where we get hurt, where something happens that is scary, that is shocking, maybe embarrassing, but at the same time, it takes us toward healing, it takes us toward growth, it takes us toward evolution. In this case, you don't get the beautiful without the ugly. It's very much a theme in the Scorpio full moon. But the last thing that I want to say here is that many of us have already begun to walk away from the past, from things that have to be left behind. Um, and yet, still, many of us will look back as we're doing so. Many of us will take these steps forward toward a reinvention while engaging in nostalgia, while hurting for things that we've had to leave behind in order to step into this new chapter of our lives. Um, and yet, a fiery inspiration urges us to take initiative contentiously, competitively, even, because we're not stepping into this new thing easily, or walking into a space where we're just welcome wholesale as is. We're probably facing pushback or resistance the entire time that we're doing it. So yeah, so talking about it, therefore, and especially for this period of the next 2 weeks, but I want to say that um, maybe for the next 2 or 3 months, a very big, a very recurring process that we're going to have is this needing to engage in the conversations and the research and the handiwork that simultaneously hurts and heals, that takes us toward evolution and away from overworking, from overcomplicating situations, from perfectionism, toward ease and rest and fortune and, let's say, effortless progress, or easier progress, I want to say, at least, because there's a big push here with the Taurus placements and the North Node in Pisces to walking into a chapter of our lives where we don't work harder, we work, if anything, less effortfully, and achieve more success, get more things done by doing less in a lot of different ways, or by controlling less of the circumstances and the details, right? that's been like the larger process that we've been going through for some time now. I want to say, especially since the nodes moved into Pisces and Virgo, but specifically when it comes to this full moon, it's by a jarring realization, a shock. In some cases, the shock might be a death, taking us to important places or necessary places in terms of our emotions, our home situations, our health, our sense of values. And so that's really what I have to say about this full moon. Even with all my hesitating and stuttering, I still kept it to close to 15 minutes. So I hope this has been useful. I hope that this has been illustrative, that everything, tracks and you can follow along. And so, or, if it wasn't super clear and you have questions, then by all means, write to me in the comments or write to me on social media. I'll have my links handy. I hope you have a great full moon. I hope that you've set out some moon water. Those of you that work with that, this full moon's energy is going to be great for spiritual baths, I think, further down the line. And take good care of yourselves and each other. I hope to see you again in 2 weeks.